Welcome to Hypothetical Questions with the Gray Matters blog. I'm Gray, and today we're going to be talking about 3 different hypothetical questions pertaining to modern weapons, magical martial arts, and what magical system you would bring into the real world. As always, I want to thank you guys for joining us over here on YouTube. We are probably best known for our work over on TikTok asking hypotheticals, but we're coming over here because of all the obvious stuff going on over there. Also, because we can do longer form content. Normally, I get to do one question at a time, and I don't really get to give my viewpoints on any of these. So not only are we going to cover 3 really interesting questions, I'm also going to be able to tell you my viewpoint on them. So I think this is going to be fun, so let's get started. And our first hypothetical is, if all firearms were to disappear from existence, there is no longer any type of firearms type weapons and nothing firearms adjacent. There are no more grenades, no more cannons, nothing like that, and it cannot be replicated, is never going to exist again. But now it is acceptable for you to carry some kind of weapon with you on your person, on your day-to-day, in your community for self-defense. This has just become a norm. Everybody does it. It's just considered normal. What weapon are you going to carry? Now, I kind of want to look at this hypothetical question from 2 lenses. One is, what would I personally carry? And this is also what I want you to answer, is what would you personally carry with yourself on the day-to-day? But I also want to look at, what do we think other people would carry? Because I also think that's a fascinating, little mental exercise, because I do think what we carry and then what the people around us would carry might be very different. One thing I want to address is the fact that whatever you're thinking about carrying, whatever you're thinking about wearing, you have to carry it and you have to wear it. So you actually have to put it in your vehicle with you while you go to work. It has to, if you work a desk job, it has to sit with you at your desk. If you work on the floor at a fast food restaurant, then you have to be able to carry it around with you while you're flipping burgers. Whatever you do, this weapon has to go with you. So that's definitely a factor, because obviously we all want to carry a 10-foot tall naginata or a pike or whatever, something huge. We all want to carry the biggest, most effective weapon. But as far as a day-to-day weapon, that's not going to be very effective. Now, first of all, I want to address the subject of armor, because what kind of armor people are wearing definitely impacts what kind of weapons we want to carry. And the thing is, I feel like in general, people aren't going to wear very much armor. Now, they're allowed to. In this hypothetical situation, you could wear armor. That's absolutely something you would be allowed to do. But most of the time, people don't wear armor. There are armors you can wear now. There are bulletproof vests that exist now, and people don't generally wear them. So while people might wear heavier clothing, maybe even things like a gambeson or buff jacket, basically heavier cloth armor, which is surprisingly effective. They've actually shown it thwarting swords and stopping some arrows. So, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying cloth armor doesn't have any viability, but in general, especially if you live in a hot climate, it's just not going to be something most people are wearing. So generally speaking, while someone could walk around in full plate if they wanted to, they're really not going to. Now, for me, for what I feel like my weapon loadout is going to be, it's going to have a little bit to do with what I'm trained with and a little bit to do with what I'm comfortable with and can actually feel like I can carry. One thing I'm going to carry is going to be an actual walking stick. Going to look something kind of like this. And I feel like something in the heavy wood cane variety, just like you would normally walk with, but of a very sturdy element, is going to be really, really good. Something in hickory, something like that, because that's something you can carry about on your person. When you need to free up both hands, you can hook it onto your arm. I feel like a cane is going to be very useful. The other thing that I think is going to be very useful that I want to carry in conjunction with that is going to be like a tanto. And of course, the tanto is the smallest weapon in the daisho. So you have your full samurai sword katana, then you have the shorter version that is the wakizashi, and then the knife is the tanto. And I feel like that is something I would want to carry on my belt, because I feel that would be very effective. That's going to be, it's also something I have a lot of training with. So that paired with the cane, I feel like is going to handle any situation I might be in. I have the lethality in the tanto, and I have the cane, which I also have training with. And that's going to be giving me my reach and my ability to deal with longer weapons. So let me know what you would carry, and would you seek new training, or would you be relying on training you already have? Now, another thing we want to consider is, what do you think people would carry? Now, I live in Texas. Right now, people carry a lot of firearms, and if they couldn't carry firearms, I have a feeling they would start carrying something. Now, what do I kind of find it likely that the people around me would carry? One is going to be machetes, just machetes all day long. People already carry those on their belts now. It's not that weird even, it's totally legal. So I feel like machetes would be a huge deal. I feel like we'd see a lot of machetes. I also feel like things like Bowie knives are already, again, people already carry kind of large knives on their belts. That's really not that uncommon, so I think we'd see a lot of that. I do feel like all kinds of walking sticks would be also fairly prevalent. I also feel like there would be a ton of people, especially in the beginning, that would get some big two-handed claymore or a battle axe or something and carry it around and then think they were really bad, and then suddenly just stop carrying it because it's too heavy and then carry nothing. Because people do that with firearms now. I can't tell you how many people own like this giant 45 that they then leave at their house and never carry anything with them, thinking they're bad because they own a big high-capacity 45, when they never have it with them, so it doesn't do them very much good. So let me know, what do you think the people in your community, if it suddenly was acceptable to carry, would carry? Now, I do want to address one more little issue with this hypothetical before we move on. Whenever I pose this one, and I've posed it lots of times in lots of different places, I always end up with a person telling me, well, I don't carry a firearm now. Why would I carry a weapon if there weren't any firearms? I don't see any point in that. Even so far as to say that people like me who think I might like to have a weapon for self-defense, calling me all sorts of names, that I'm crazy, that I'm a psycho, whatever. And all that I have to say to that is, I don't know where you live that there is no violence, that no one ever tries to hurt anybody else, that you never have to worry about being assaulted in any way, you don't ever have to worry about being robbed, your family, your children, nobody is ever in any danger and nobody ever hurts anybody. I don't know where you live, but I want to live there. And I kind of have a suspicion you probably don't live there too. You're probably just a little bit sheltered and are not terribly aware of the dangers around you. So if you see no reason why anyone would ever want to carry a tool for self-defense, this hypothetical is probably not for you. But for the rest of us who might rather like to defend ourselves should that situation ever come up, I want to know what you think you would carry. For our second hypothetical question, if you could practice a martial art to a supernatural level, what martial art would you choose? Now, the supernatural abilities that you are going to access through this supernatural martial art are going to be more in line with whatever kind of martial art it is. Now, the powers that you would be able to access through this supernatural martial art are going to be ones that relate to that martial art. So if, for instance, you practice Taekwondo, Taekwondo is a martial art that is highly focused on kicking and flexibility and maneuverability. So you would be able to do things like tornado kicks, that thing Chun-Li does with her leg in Street Fighter. You would be able to fly through the air and you would have this supernatural mobility. If you practice something like Kung Fu, at least certain styles of Kung Fu, you're going to have that very much iron body, be able to take hits and absorb damage, all sorts of taking the brick to the head kind of physical acts of resilience. If you have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you are going to literally be able to fold laundry while people are still in it. You also would be able to access things like elemental bending because, of course, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, all of the bending martial arts were based on real martial arts. So I would rule that if you happen to practice one of those martial arts, you should be able to access, because most martial arts, or at least a lot of martial arts, are based on elemental philosophy. So if you master one of those, you would be able to access kind of elemental powers. Also, feel free to be creative. What do you think your favorite martial art would gain in supernatural power? So what do you think the different martial arts would have as a supernatural power, and which one would you study? Is it one that you study now, or would you pick it up if it did have the ability to give you magic powers? Now, for me, it's going to be based off the martial arts that I study now. Which one, I do study Taekwondo, and I do feel like that would be a fantastic choice. I would love to be able to fly through the air like a helicopter with my leg. But at the same time, I'm going to go with the original martial art that I studied, which is Bujinkan Budo Taijutsu, which is going to be a martial art that's kind of like modern ninjutsu. And we practiced a lot of managing situations, a lot of using improvised weapons, and also a lot of not being seen and not being perceived to be doing what we're doing. It's not the art of invisibility, but it is being able to go around and, for instance, if you're having to defend yourself, make sure no one noticed it or perceived it in a bad way. So it would be a lot of mind manipulation, a lot of managing of situations, kind of Jedi mind tricks would absolutely be in there. And then also just a lot of being able to climb walls and ability to jump over things, because we did a lot of that kind of training of how to get where you need to be. So the type of modern ninjutsu would 100% be where I would probably want to focus most of my power. Although I do have to say that learning something like Drunken Kung Fu and then becoming a master stuntsman, although I do have to say learning something like Drunken Kung Fu and then becoming a master stunt performer in Hollywood would also be a really cool choice. So let me know what magical martial arts you would choose and what you think different martial arts would have as their magical powers. And before we get to our final question of the day, I want to remind everyone to check us out everywhere we are. We are over on TikTok at The Gray Matters blog. We also have a Discord server there. We also have a podcast here on YouTube and everywhere podcasts are presented. That is the Liminal Radio Niche Horror Podcast with my friend Hatter, who is also here on YouTube. You should follow him and his retro gaming channel. And I also want to throw out a shout out to him because he is our editor. He edited this video. And if you need editing work done, you can contact him as well. The contact information is going to be below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe because that really helps us grow the channel. We are trying to make this a thing here. So if you want to see more of these long form videos from me here on YouTube, make sure to hit all the buttons, do all the things. And for our final question, If you could take any magical system from any fictional world, which one would you pick to bring into the modern world? Now, it is going to bring this magic system whole cloth into the world, and everyone will have access to it, at least everyone who would have access to it. For instance, if you pick the Force from Star Wars, then if certain people will be born Force sensitive, most people won't be, and you specifically will be. If there is like a special class of people like Force sensitives or wizards in Harry Potter, you're going to be part of that class. So you're not going to get left out in the cold, because you, as the progenitor of this magic system, get to participate in it. But it will be just like it is. Say, for instance, if you pick the Force, it's going to be just like it is in Star Wars. Some people will have it stronger, some people will have it weaker, and you'll have to train it if you want to become really good at it. Now, we are not bringing in anything else. There will be no lightsabers. There will be no Jedi Order. There will be no Sith. There might be, if you create one, you could decide, hey, I'm going to start the Jedi Order, but nothing from that world except the magic system comes into this world. Same thing with Harry Potter. You don't bring a ministry of magic. There aren't even any magical creatures. There are just humans who have power. Now, I will say that you will be able to figure out how to make things like potion components work in our world. So no, you won't necessarily be able to find, the horn of a unicorn here in the real world, but you will be able to find something that works. Interestingly enough, boomslang skin, which is one of the main potion ingredients for a polyjuice potion, a boomslang is an actual real snake. So you absolutely could find that in the real world. So no matter what you pick, you will be able to access it in our world. So what of these magical systems would you bring into our world? Would you bring something like some of the Brandon Sanderson stuff into our world? Would it be something from Lord of the Rings, which, to be perfectly honest, I don't even think Tolkien understood how his magic system worked. So what magic system would you bring into our world? Now, I will say that for my pick, I'm torn between two things. One, I love the Harry Potter magic system. It doesn't make any sense. It's not a hard magic system, but it would be super fun, and it is based upon how hard you work at it and how hard you study. And I would definitely, if I had access to a magic system, I would be like Hermione. I would be wondering why everyone else didn't spend all their time in the library studying it, because what could be cooler than that? So that would absolutely be one of my picks, although my other pick is from a book series called the Grim Noir series. The first book is called Hard Magic, and it's by an author named Larry Correia. And it is essentially set in the period between the world wars, and it's kind of a grim noir detective story that is based around these wizards, and they have these different abilities. They call them wizards, but really they're more almost like X-Men mutants, and there are certain set powers, like some people have the ability to start fire, and they call them torches. Some people are very strong, and they call them brutes. Some people have the ability to manipulate gravity, and they call them heavies. That's actually the main character, is a heavy and can manipulate gravity. It's a fantastic book series, and those are some really cool powers, and I do think those would be cool. Ultimately, I do think I will go with the Harry Potter system, just because it's so versatile. You can do so much with it, and your only limit to your power of what you can do is how much you're willing to study. And like I said, if there's magic involved, I'm going to turn into the biggest nerd. I'm already one of the biggest nerds, so that's going to be my pick. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time for another round of Hypothetical Questions.